Hello, and welcome to Glitch Point. In this episode, we are going to start by talking about the Xbox Direct announcements and how we felt about each game that they announced, and just in general how the announcements went. One, during this COVID time, as well as just the games themselves and the console launch that's coming. So for this one, the big thing I think that overhangs it is they didn't. Obviously there's no announcements for Halo, which is going to be the biggest game that gets launched. Yeah. But I think that this is also just nice because it shows a lot. This is a lot of the third-party games.
Yeah, that was what this event was built for.
Yeah, and that's good because it's, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because since these are multi-platform developments, they're going to not look as good. They're not going to be able to utilize the hardware. I don't know how many of them are.
Good amount of those were Series X console exclusives. So
they were, the ones that said console exclusives. Yeah.
And I think another thing that I don't know a lot of people were mentioning was in the tweet when they mentioned, when they announced this event, they specifically said global partners, and many people just assumed AAA. But when I looked at everything that got announced, almost all developers were foreign developers. So I don't think anybody from the United States was shown, which is why we didn't see games like Cyberpunk and Starfield. Some games that a lot of people were like, oh, we got to be able to see those now. But everything was.
Well, they also didn't make it that clear during the event or during the showing of it. It's I watched the thing and it wasn't like that. That was not a point that they made clear right at the beginning.
No.
Which is probably what they should have done, or even have a banner where it says, these are just our international developers. Which makes sense because there was a lot of games from Asia or from Japan that were out, and a lot of developers that I've heard of games from them, but some of them I had never even heard of the company before, or it was the one that's the one guy, which is
that's gonna be fun.
The Foyd, it was the Bright Memory Infinite.
Yeah, that game I'm really excited for.
Is it Floyd? Floyded? It's FYQD. I don't know how to say that.
FYQD Studio. I don't know if there's another
pronunciation.
Way of pronouncing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how much I can believe in a game that's built of that quality and that scope with one guy. There are other one guy games, but they're games that developed over time. Obviously Minecraft is a game that when it first came out, it was very raw, and then over time he put more work into it and things were slowly developed. But this is a game that's coming out for a launch console. One, it's coming out on console, which means it has to be fully finished.
Yeah, he's definitely getting help from Xbox to publish on the console, I imagine.
What do we know what he I didn't actually look it up, what he developed in?
Oh, it's Unreal Engine.
It is Unreal. It looked like Unreal Engine.
Yeah, he mentioned in a recent tweet that 80% is just his own development, where 20% is, the Unity store and plugins and stuff like that. So, when I heard that, it definitely seemed a lot more feasible, Unreal has a lot of built-in things that, there's a lot you can do with the Unreal Engine.
But the art style itself was very not Unreal. It had its elements in Unreal, but it definitely was a lot darker than a lot of the stuff you see on the asset store. I guess you can build it, but the assets were really good. I thought the assets that he showed were really good. I thought the traversal was interesting. I was so surprised when the sword came out.
Yeah, no,
I was like,
so am I.
What? I was like, okay. Because it kind of feels like a Souls shooter thing.
I'm worried that the game was I loved single thing that I saw about it, but it did seem like there's a lot of different mechanics getting thrown in, and I'm wondering how they're all going to play together. If it's going to be a little bit of a hot mess, or if there's going to be a nice. It is, but a very nice way of putting them all together.
Well, and also now that we've seen a grappling hook from Doom Eternal, it's people are going to know what a good grappling hook. So if he doesn't do the grappling hook, doesn't feel good. People are going to get pissed. They're going to be like, "This sucks."
Yeah.
I think it's nice that they kind of put it in the preface of a single developer. I think people will look at it a little differently and give it a little bit more leeway. I'm surprised it's a launch title.
Is that confirmed? I didn't.
Is it a launch title? I mean, I thought everything in the
was.
Direct was a launch title. Or,
No.
No, it was not.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know if any one of those was confirmed as a launch. Just console exclusives.
Okay.
I can't remember all of them that were, and some of them were just full third-party ones, but it seemed a lot of the games were PC games that were getting Xbox versions, but only Xbox versions. So
Okay.
that says something.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the other thing that, it was very interesting. It was, so the ray trace, like, because that's like the big thing that I was hoping for, and nothing really looked that great. Like when I was looking through all the games, and I was waiting for the one, Corvus was the only one. It was the flying game where you were in space and you were shooting. That was the only one where I was like blown away with how it looked. But I still felt when I watched that, and it'll be interesting to watch the games to come. You know, the big titles from big companies. Mm-hmm. But the videos were still better in that game than the actual gameplay, and that's actually how I felt about most of these games. If you saw gameplay, which you didn't in most of these, but if you were to see the videos always look better. Mm-hmm. The in game cinematics always look better than the gameplay, and I was like kind of hoping with this console and with ray tracing and everything that's coming out, I was hoping that we would get to the point where they look pretty much the same, which is hard to ask for because in-game cinematics is all pre-computed, so you're going to be able to do a lot more with it. But
yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of games that don't go with pre-computed, and I think that's something that stood out. With like Halo's, all the Halo games in prior were like in-engine cutscenes that were running in real time, but they have definitely gone away from that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Halo 4 and 5's cutscenes were not running in engine.
Yeah.
And I know with Halo 2 Anniversary, even though those cutscenes are like the greatest looking cutscenes I've ever seen, they're definitely not in engine.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that takes away from it or not.
Well,
a little bit, but.
It just shows. I mean, it's kind of a gimmick, right? I mean, like in-game cutscenes. It's this the Final Fantasy series, which that's what they made their name on, was providing you with amazing in-game cutscenes, and like you just every time you'd see them, and so it's kind of like this easy gimmick and this easy way, and it provides great trailers, which is the other thing, and that's what you get. You get all these teaser trailers, which are just in-game cutscenes. Yeah. But I'm hoping that we'll get to the point where it'll be pretty much synonymous between the cutscenes.
I think that's a great goal for this generation of consoles, is to like get more in-game cutscenes or in-engine cutscenes.
In-engine cutscenes, yeah. Well, we can. I mean, that's the thing. Like, and that game looked really good. But even like Dirt, which I was like, I thought that Dirt was going to look really, because I always look to racing games, and because I don't know, for some reason they always seem to push the limits of the visual aspects of, because I mean, like I remember even like when Forza first came out, and like it looked better than any other game on the I forget what console that was. It must have been
Forza?
the first one. PS.
That's Xbox.
Was it Xbox?
The Forza. Unless you're thinking about Gran Turismo.
No, it was Forza.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember when Forza came out. Yeah, you're right. It was on original Xbox. But I remember when that, like, even when that came out, it looked really good because they had the shine of the cars and all the stuff, and so I looked at Dirt and I was really wanted that to be a huge showcase on raycasting and like raycast lighting, because I always look to these driving games and it looked okay.
Yeah.
It was like there were a couple scenes where like there was that one scene where they were coming into the city and they were panning in and like they had the lights and it was in dark and that looked really good. But the game itself, it looked like any other. I mean, it looked like this generation.
Yeah,
not
I'm
next
worried
generation.
that especially early on, there's going to be a huge push for just faster load times rather than a push for performance and graphics. And I don't know. And I think that's just because we're early in the generation and publishers don't want to put their game only on the new console. So like, and the same thing happened last generation of like a lot of games came out on both platforms and just, made sacrifices. Because it just came out today that Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which was like the big game they were supposed to show off, will be running at 4K 30 on a new console. And a lot of people are like, how can the next gen consoles still only be running 30? And I don't think that that's a fault on Xbox's hardware, but I think that Ubisoft's not. I don't think they're putting development time to get that to like to optimize that for the new console. I
But
think they're just using smart delivery and increased load times and kind of calling it good.
they wouldn't do scalable specs. I mean, like for the
You
new
could,
consoles.
but I mean, you still have to, there's a
Development
little bit
time,
of
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't think they're putting that development time into, and I'm wondering how many developers are going to not put development time early on.
yeah,
And I think Xbox could enforce it, but they've also gone on record of saying they don't want to enforce things like frame rate this time around because everyone's been enforcing like 60 FPS recently and like making sure, and they want to. Xbox wants developers to have more freedom, so they're like, if they don't want the game to run at 60, but they want it to run at 120 frames, that's an option.
okay.
But I don't think Assassin's Creed's doing that either. And if you want your game to run at not 4K but have ray tracing, then you can do that too. So it's kind of up to developers how they want to use the new power. I just think early on we're not going to see them use it.
Have there been any
Ways that
have you heard any talk about like how friendly development is on the new console? I mean,
I see rumors going all over the place of like, oh, this industry dev said that the Xbox is the easiest platform to dev on, and then this other one saying the PS5 is the easiest one to dev on. I don't.
at this point, it really doesn't matter anymore
I
because
really don't think it does. I think they're both really, really developer friendly, and that's been the goal since the last gen of making a console really developer friendly. So I think they're both really great platforms to dev on.
well, I mean,
As
there's not
somebody
really
who
like
doesn't know much.
there's not really any like significant hardware techniques. I mean, I think that a lot of times we used to play the game back in older consoles like PlayStation 3 and like where they would do hardware tricks to try to push out a little bit more, eke out a little bit more power, which would make it a little more frustrating for developers themselves to be able to develop on. Where I don't think we're there anymore. I think that like our hardware is so far in front of software anyways that I mean I don't think that we're utilizing fully the hardware that we have. So maybe it's not necessarily a concern as it used to be, but I mean I know that was a big case where that comes to then who wants to develop on the console and like where I guess who ends up going exclusive.
Yeah, and I know early on there was a lot of PlayStation 4 games had the benefit of they had a simpler RAM architecture. I think they were I can't remember exactly the specifications, but Xbox had some special type of like ERAM, I think it was called, that they had that was supposed to help. But again, it was just like if you're doing multi-plat, it's kind of hard to use that because you're already using a different architecture.
I think it
so
wasn't
I think there's less of that.
Wasn't there PlayStation 3? Wasn't that the one that had
No, that
the
was Cell.
processors like
Yeah,
the
that was
different
cell architecture.
Yeah, the cell architecture and
future
like
of computing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was
and people
garbage.
hated it and they
Yeah, I
hated
think
developing for
Pretty
it.
sure Gabe Newell literally said it was hell to develop.
Yeah.
And it was bad. It reminded me of when the Saturn came out and they were suffering with the PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 1 was kind of just pushing barriers that the Saturn wasn't intended for because the Saturn was supposed to be a 2D console.
Yeah.
And then
I didn't know that.
they decided at the very end of just shoving another processor in there and being like, well, just use this to go 3D. And people were like, what the fuck is this? And even I think the guy who makes Shenmue, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was like, you can be a great programmer and not the greatest programmers don't understand how to program the Saturn. It's just that difficult. And the same thing happened with cell architecture. Barely anyone understood. Naughty Dog seemed to figure it out, but there are
well, I mean, we're so far
that's
away.
the only platform they developed for 5 to 10 years.
But we're so far away from like assembly developer. And that's the kind of that's the kind of mindset you kind of have to do is where people like understand the hardware so well that they could develop the whole game in assembly if they really wanted to, and take the time. But most people don't. I mean, we're so abstracted now that it's going to be pretty difficult to go back to that. So I mean,
I'm really curious what kind of Sony's ray tracing API solution is, if they're making something in house or if they're going with something a little more open.
Do you know who the?
Because I know Xbox has DirectX, and
Yeah.
I know they're going to be developing like ray tracing through DirectX, and that won't be on the PlayStation 5. It doesn't support DirectX, so I wonder if they can do some really great work there that Sony might not be able to catch up on. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. It sucks that there is again a split in the different technologies.
Yeah,
because
and
it becomes two APIs you have to learn and blah blah. It's
and it's Microsoft's fault of having their proprietary stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, DirectX has been like the go-to for gaming for a very, very long time. Like it's extremely great. So I don't know if developers still hate that there's two or
Well, I think it's like PC developers usually won't go DirectX because they're going to be the ones that won't care if they ever go Linux or whatever. It's like,
yeah.
I don't think console developers, like once you're a console developer, I suppose though.
Although, like I'm seeing it now with some of the early adaptations of ray tracing, it's through you need DirectX. Like I downloaded this new demo called Ghost Runner, which is really awesome. It's like a cyberpunk Mirror's Edge game. It's cool, and it has ray tracing, but you have to enable DirectX 12 graphics API to even enable ray tracing.
Yeah.
Which I haven't figured out how to do yet, but I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah.
But I want to see.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know. It's the same way it's always been. There's always going to be multiple APIs. There's always going to be multiple. It's usually proprietary versus open source. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of where we're always at, and it's always Microsoft versus everyone else. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of It's but DirectX. I mean, it's the funny thing is you can do the same thing with both. So it's not really that big of a deal. It just becomes syntax. And like if you're a developer, once you understand what to do, it's like it shouldn't matter too much. You just have to learn the language and learn the syntax for the other card.
Yeah, so maybe that's where devs can put their foot down and say one is easier than the other. Just maybe one API is a little bit friendlier or has additional things. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, there's like you really just it doesn't really matter.
I'm surprised that hasn't been abstracted. And maybe it has. Maybe I've just never really dealt with an abstracted language that would deal with both. So like you just program in one language and then it would make the appropriate calls on either one. And I'm sure there are.
I mean,
Well, if you're
using like pound defines and and having you build your own interface so you can have calls that do whatever the other depending on the platform. That's definitely a thing. Or
you just use an engine that already does it for you.
You just use Unreal and just package for this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a disappointing show. There was just a lot. It was just weird. I think that's why people were probably pushed off on this one because a lot of the games that were shown were just. I don't know.
Smaller teams.
They were small.
I never really heard of, and I mean, some of the teams were exciting, and I think it just came down to communication, and they responded later on Thursday that like they didn't communicate well enough what this event was supposed to be. And I think it's just tough because everyone's super excited to see the Series X and the PlayStation 5. They want to see big games running. They want to see the games that they want to buy. So when you show, even though there were like new games being shown, a lot of them was, I don't know, they weren't your Cyberpunks or your Fallouts and stuff like that. I mean, one game I was excited for was Scorn, but they didn't show gameplay either. But I was a fan of the art style and where that game could take you.
Yeah, Scorn. What was the other game that I Scorn reminded me of Agony. Do you remember Agony?
No.
Agony. So I mean, like, and which kind of didn't get a very good score, but it was the same type of thing where it was like hell incarnate and I don't know. I think that these games are like or shock value. I don't know if they necessarily will be good, but who knows? I mean, it's a definitely unique experience. And that's the only other game that I can think of that's ever done that, where it's like really going into hell and really dealing with like the demon infestation of like that. That's kind of what Scorn felt.
I wonder is this meant to be hell? Because I know
isn't it
really influenced by H.R. Geiger. That's how you pronounce it, which is just an artist who does this art style really heavily. But I don't know much about they didn't show a terrible amount anyways, so I don't know much of what the game is. I know it's a first-person game with that art style.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it should be interesting. It might just be a walk experience.
Yeah, I imagine it being just like an Outlast game. But which are okay for me, and I don't play a ton of them. But I kind of want it to be a little more involved in that way of like an Alien Isolation game.
I mean, the other one that they seem like jazzed about, which I don't know how I feel about it because I was like not that jazzed when I was The Medium.
Yeah, I mean that,
and I was like, they were really. I mean, they had the talk at the end about it. They like
with like the silent.
And they didn't really even
composer, which is cool, and he does great work.
Well, did you ever play Blair Witch?
No,
because that was the only other company the only other game that company made that I knew of. They
made.
There was I looked it up, and there was like other series that I've never heard of. But I remember Blair Witch. I remember people being kind of excited about it, and then it was I watched a couple of streamers play it. It seemed okay. I mean, it seemed okay. It was not like, and
yeah.
I mean, great. Yeah, the Silent Hill composer. I don't know how awesome that is. It's like it's a composer.
Layers of Fear was their other game, which I didn't play.
You heard of that game?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of Layers of Fear? I've never heard of it.
And same with Observer. I've heard of that game as well. But they're definitely not like huge releases. And Blair Witch was a larger release for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it's a cool sounding idea. And if they do go for more Silent Hill vibes in the gameplay, I'll try it out.
It's interesting because if this is where's the Valhalla team located?
They're in France.
They're in France.
It's Ubisoft. Or wait, actually, they may be the Montreal team. I can't remember.
Here's the thing: like, I feel like there wasn't a lot of the big players from England there in this. I mean, maybe they're not developing games, but I don't know.
Well,
it just seemed like these were. I don't know. I mean, all the ones I shouldn't have said that.
Ubisoft
but yeah.
Montreal.
Okay.
I mean, Ubisoft's one of the biggest publisher developer groups in Europe, which was why they were there, and they just announced in July that they have their own conference, so we're pretty much just seeing E3 in July spread out.
Yeah. Okay. I guess
it was a lot smaller teams than people.
It's funny. Most of the English developers that I was thinking of have all gone under.
Yeah. The big ones that come to mind are like, Rare and Ubisoft, and CD Projekt Red, Playground Games. Two of the ones I listed are both Xbox exclusive ones. But
is CD Projekt Red in UK?
They're in.
I know that. I thought they were in.
They're not in Sweden.
Oh no, they're. It's like Port or not Port. I remember
Poland.
watching Poland. Yeah, that sounds right.
Pretty sure.
Because that's how they. Did you ever watch that documentary on them?
Yeah.
Where that's how they got started was they would bootleg CDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorite documentaries from that.
No Clip.
No Clip. Yes.
Yeah, he's great at making.
No Clip is amazing. Yeah.
Documentaries.
Yeah. The No Clip one. I was like, man, it's so amazing. Like how now that we have this huge developer that came from like nothing.
I know, like they have their own PC storefront, GOG.
Yeah,
like that's insane.
Do they?
GOG is made by.
Oh,
well, CD Projekt is the company that has. GOG,
oh, that's right. You're right.
CD
Yeah,
Projekt
GOG
Red
did
is their development team.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's very impressive. Their early humble beginnings turned into that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how. I mean, Steam had early.
But then why wouldn't they? I guess they're just too big to be part of this international. I mean, like that's the other thing is it's not just an international.
Well, I mean, the other thing is
developers.
All these games, they were all pretty much new games getting shown off, and they have Cyberpunk. So like they have their own marketing timelines that they're trying to hit with Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
and probably just didn't line up. Whereas these games, it did. It seemed like smaller teams that were getting huge help from Xbox by showing them off, and a lot of them were Xbox console exclusives. So, which I think was not communicated during the stream well enough, because I didn't find out about any of these games being console exclusives until after.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh, by the way, all those games they showed out, or a lot of the games."
No, didn't they say
only on Xbox?
Yeah, but didn't they say exclusive during the event?
I saw a lot of world premieres.
Oh, that's
but
not the same thing. World premiere is not an exclusive.
Yeah, I mean that was right. Honestly, that's my biggest disappointment from the show was the past couple E3s. They've had a really cool dude who would announce world premiere and Xbox exclusive, and he wasn't there. And that was it took a little bit out.
Well, it's also a direct.
Yeah, I know, but
it's not the big E3 name.
True. That guy he gets you so hyped.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
World premiere pop up, you're like, oh
world
boy.
Premiere.
Which I mean, I was every time I saw that pop up, I was excited, but.
What did you think of? Oh, what was the name of that game? I think it was the Ascent. It was the arcade game. It was the arcade. I actually was really excited about this because I was kind of worried about this new console that they were going to forego arcade games, and like it looked decent. I mean, it looked it's kind of fun how you attack the enemy and it says apparently it kind of felt like you were bringing in your friends or something to like attack it. You all have to attack it at the same time.
Yeah, no,
and coordinate. And
I was super excited because it was like world premiere, and then it showed this cool like cutscene and like definitely not gameplay, but I was like, oh, this is a cool aesthetic. And then it showed that it was like top-down shooter, and I was like, oh. But then I watched it more. I'm like, okay, wait, yeah, this looks awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited for that game.
Because, I mean, they really haven't talked about that. And maybe it's just where we are in games now. Like, games are so big, and there's so many big games that we just kind of forget about the arcade games.
Yeah.
You know, and it didn't used to be that way. I mean, arcade games used to carry a lot of weight, and maybe they just don't anymore. Or maybe people don't care. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, we had like in the 2000s of like a lot of, I mean, the indie devs were kind of resurrecting arcade games.
Yeah.
And now we've seen all of them turn into studios that make games like The Medium.
Yeah,
And
that's
stuff.
true.
So like a lot of these indie companies have either branched out and made new ones or just kind of grown up and are starting to make our AA type games. And then we're just seeing, you know, but there's still a lot of indie devs who are making those arcade type games. But no, I'm really excited.
You know which one I would really like to see?
What?
Another Geometry Wars.
Did they have a third one?
Did they have a third one?
Geometry Wars 3, or was that?
But
two?
that was a release title for. Was it not Elite? Those games were really good.
Yeah, they have Geometry Wars 3, which came out in 2014.
Okay.
So.
Oh wow, it's 3D.
Yes.
That's
okay, maybe that's
awesome.
what you're looking for. Yeah, that's a great.
No, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. But it's still, I mean, I think it's a great title that they've carried through, and it's only been on Xbox.
It's on PlayStation now.
Is it on PlayStation?
The first one definitely was Arcade Xbox Live Arcade.
Oh, okay.
But I think maybe 2 was also, but 3 is on all platforms.
I played 1 and 2 only on Xbox. I thought they were only released on Xbox because I had both consoles.
Pretty sure the
and
first one was only.
I think the second
It
one
might
too.
have been re-released later.
I think the second one was also
Geometry.
only Xbox. But the third one's all over the place. They've
which is
out.
good. You know.
Well, no, I mean,
Being
it
able
kind
to
of.
play.
I do think that they should carry their. Oh yeah, look at this.
Wow, it
Evolved
was published
PlayStation
by
4.
Activision. Wow, so they had a big time publisher behind them for the third one.
Yeah. No, but I think there should be these arcade games that should be carried on, and they should be exclusives. Like I think that there should be arcade games that are based exclusively for a console because I think there's something about that. It kind of fills out the gaps. You know, it's like
That's what I'm really excited for. Battletoads, the new one. Like,
Yeah.
that's console exclusive, and it's just like
is it Switch?
no, it's
That's what it
just
should
a
be.
Xbox exclusive
Should be
beat 'em
Switch.
up shooter. You were just saying you need exclusives. Xbox just gave
Well,
you one.
I think it should be exclusive Switch.
Yeah,
I think it should.
guess. They got plenty of games.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I mean, there's this. There's also like the Tomb Raider game that came out that was top down. That was an arcade style game.
Oh, yeah.
I wish they would make another one of those. I think that was also. That might have been all consoles, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just because you can play these games are just so big now. It's like every game that I come across now, it's like okay, well I have to put in, 500 hours or some
Yeah.
crap to like really get your fool's worth out of, and that's where these arcade games. And I felt like every console in the past had their moment where they really supported arcade games,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't anymore. Like there was Xbox Arcade,
Yep.
which doesn't exist.
No.
Where you could literally, there was DirectX was a special development tool for Xbox Arcade. And the cool thing about Xbox Arcade was it was the first time where they allowed for anybody to feel like they could make games and publish them. So you would get, I remember there were games that were just so simply developed but were fun.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's just the audiences have changed because we still
I
have
don't think
ID at
so.
Xbox, which is what Xbox Live Arcade turned into, which is their indie platform. And then there's also the Xbox Creators Program, which is pretty much what the indie program was on the 360. Like those, and anyone really can publish a game on that thing.
True.
So
I think there's development.
exists, but I don't know.
They're just not being like it's not they're not the forefront of like
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
There used to be like when you would watch these directs and all this stuff or whatever even E3 you would see these games and you'd be like I'm excited for those arcade
Yeah, like
games.
last year we had all the past E3s, Xbox has had an entire section dedicated to iDate Xbox, which is the
Yeah.
indie platform. And I wonder if we're gonna get one of those without E3 this year.
Yeah,
No.
maybe not. I mean,
Because
that's
there's
true.
always games in there that are like, oh, this is a cute little game.
Well, it also gives hope to people that are developers, right?
Yeah.
And like it's actually an achievable goal rather than, I mean, yeah, there's the one guy that.
Yeah,
we're not all the one.
dev over there.
We're not all. We're not all the one guy.
Yeah.
So
all
and
can't be that guy.
yeah, we all can't be that guy. So it's like to to have games that you're like, okay, well, this is there's an achievable goal, and it's still really fun. I don't know. I feel like we're missing out a little bit because the development support is no longer there. And it used to be. It used to be what filled in the gap between all these AAA games, and they knew that. They knew people wanted these arcade games. And now I just don't feel like the field is the same. Like, I don't feel like it's the same as, especially on PlayStation. PlayStation used to be really huge in their indie games.
That's what kind of resurrected them after they kind of had a botched PlayStation 3 launch. Was like they went back, and especially early in the days of PlayStation 4, a lot of indie developers were using PlayStation over Xbox.
Yeah.
And that kind of just stopped. I don't know why. I mean, there's still a lot more physical releases on the PlayStation for indie games, but it does seem like it has died down a little bit in terms of like global awareness or like casual gamer awareness.
I don't know. I remember buying more indie games or small development games than I did actual games, and it's the other way around now.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because I have to look back at like seeing trends of where things were at the end of generations. Like, where were we at the end of the last generation? Because the Xbox Live Arcade like was exploding mid to early of the generation.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering how popular it was at the end.
Well, I think it's specifically bound to the marketplace on both consoles. So like you go to the marketplace on both consoles and what is being advertised on the front page.
Yeah.
It is not indie games anymore. And it used to be. They used to be up there. Occasionally there will be one, but it used to be a lot more indie games. And you could say that the development process and how many game companies there are and like how many games are coming out, there's no longer those long gaps, which are I think that might have been a filtration with these indie games, is because there were just these giant gaps where you would have no games coming out. That just it's not as true anymore. I mean, there are still gaps, there's still seasons and stuff, but I mean, it's getting less and less.
Games are getting released on weird schedules if you look at the patch. Like, a lot of more devs are not focusing on, we got to hit that holiday release. I mean, some still are.
Yeah.
Like, the big ones that they know will be made. But, like, yeah.
It's because so many of them can't do it, and they've defaulted to January.
I know. So, like...
How many times have that has been happening for the last, 3 years? How many companies have defaulted to January and maybe even beyond?
I think, gaming used to be the point of, like, if you did not hit that holiday release, you were screwed in sales. But I just don't think that's... No one cares when a game comes out, honestly. Because like when Cyberpunk was supposed to be a March release, in the past, a game like Cyberpunk would have been a holiday release, but everyone was like, oh, cool, March. And then it got delayed to September or whatever. But I just really don't think the release date of a game matters much anymore. Unless you're in the situation where you got to hit a console launch, or, there's still, like, Call of Duty's always going to hit the holiday, and those big games that every single person knows, of course they're going to hit the holiday release.
And they should. Madden should hit its release.
Yes.
Oh, actually, sports games are probably the ones that are most bound to their release times because of the upcoming seasons that are coming out. So they want to be able to get, and it's usually pre-season, right? It's like it's to get you hyped for the season to come.
Yes.
And all sports games, that way you can see the roster for the new season and stuff like that. Like, is it after drafts?
Yeah, it's usually right before the release. So Madden releases in August, which is preseason time.
Well, when's draft?
Draft is in February for football.
So because they would want to make sure it's after draft so that they can quickly put the new roster together for that season, right?
Yeah, it's always right before, so you have the most accurate rosters up to date, and then now they update the rosters weekly.
Yeah,
almost probably daily now at this point. So
oh, really?
Yeah, you just download the new roster pack, which is really, really cool. Kind of.
What did you think of the Madden show? I'm not a sportsman. In games, but I mean, it was kind of interesting to watch. Like, it was a little confusing to know where the split points were. I wish they had just said what year it was at the bottom and a little thing, but because I didn't know where they were switching over to the next game.
It's always a year ahead. So
but in the actual Xbox Direct. Like in that show, when they showed off the new Madden, they went through every year of. I wish they had showed just put a fucking bar at the bottom and said this 2000, so you knew when they were switching, because they would show multiple videos from the same one, and then just randomly switch and be like, I guess I can see the difference. You know, it's like you're supposed to just be able to see the difference.
Madden's a really tough franchise because it's a product of literally what happens when there's a monopoly in the game industry and no one has competition. They get lazy and they don't do anything.
But do you feel like did you watch that? And because I think what their angle was on this one was, look at how we actually have advanced. You know, and like it was, but there were probably big jumps there. That's the other thing.
Well, see, the thing is there, see, Madden specifically is a tough thing to talk about because there were leaps in Madden, but they went backwards at Madden 06 was when they took a giant step backwards for the whole franchise. So,
did you notice, like, graphically though? Sorry to cut you.
Yeah, graphics always, they
always like
graphics.
When you watch that, were you like, hey, wait a second, those are big jumps in Madden releases, or
like I know which Maddens were like really big leaps for the graphics and like what they added in each year.
Did you know which Maddens they were talking about when they showed that?
Yeah.
You did?
Like, they showed off when they started to introduce like the hit stick and they started getting more animations and stuff like that. But the big issue with Madden's franchise was with the jump to the 360 generation was a huge, colossal failure. Because on the original Xbox and PlayStation, that was the golden years of Madden.
Yeah.
Because they had competition in the NFL or by Sega.
2K.
Yeah. 2K was making some, and Sega had their Sega Sports lines, and those three were really fighting each other for who the best game could be. And honestly, 2K was winning, and they obviously showed that. And in NFL 2K4 was probably one of the best football games of all time. But what happened was, you have this engine that's been working on these old consoles and the second gen, and you just keep iterating on it. But when the 360 came out, they decided to split development efforts and rework the engine, make a new engine for the new platform.
Yeah.
Which, yes, that makes sense, but
put you back.
It put you way back, and they literally have not recovered because after they get to Madden, I think 12, they did it again. They hadn't, there's features that Madden now does not have that in 2004 we had. And it was like every Madden game had that. But now you get the new game and you're like, well, where's my career mode? And where's my, my rookie year? Like, they just have all these things that don't exist anymore.
Well, this is, because the thing is...
And then they made a second switch, which was when they made Frostbite.
When you scratch, now you have a 2-year development, which you only have a year to do. So now you're doing a 2-year development in a year's amount of time. If you don't scratch, your development sounds easy. I mean, like, that's doable.
And
but, like...
Sucks, and then what happened was after they have this colossal failure of a development, when they have this console, that's when the NFL decided they don't like when there's multiple football games. So they gave an exclusive contract to EA to make Madden games. So now it doesn't matter if Madden's good. You're going to buy it.
It never mattered. When did it ever matter?
It mattered in the PlayStation 2 era was when there were multiple games. Again, as a football fan, it mattered because I was trying to get the best game.
But they had the contracts. Madden had the NFL contract.
Yeah.
So they were the only ones that could display the game.
Other ones did. So 2K, they had Madden teams on there, or NFL teams on there. They gave it out to multiple people.
I thought they didn't have the contract. Did they have the contract?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the MLB, they did the same thing, but the baseball games are a little different in this regard because they didn't do this weird era. But when they scrapped it, they were given exclusive content access, so now they don't have competition. So what's driving them to put all those features back in rather than just adding them every couple years to make it seem like a brand new feature? This past football game came out, Madden 20 came out, and they were like, hey guys, look, you can play the Pro Bowl now. And everyone was like, oh, cool, it's a brand new feature. And a lot of other fans from the old are like, that's cool, it's been 10 years since that was in the game, because you had that every single year until 2006, and then you ripped it out. So when I see the new Madden, I'm just like, well, when are you going to get back to that point? And they're never going to because they don't have any competition. Why would they need? They don't need to work for it. And I mean, no offense to the people making the Madden game. I mean, it's very hard to go through, but it just sucks.
I'm sure they know it. I'm sure internally it is well known what the agenda is. I mean, you couldn't be a developer. I mean, probably if you worked at a different company that was all about trying to get the best, technology and the best this and trying to skirt the edge of gaming development.
Yeah.
And then you go work, on a Madden game and you're everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how development is there, but it feels that way because Madden, it's sad when the only football game sim out there can't do real football plays. You can't do a goal fade in the Madden series. It's literally an impossible play to call.
Yeah.
They don't add it in there because the tech doesn't do it. You can't call a goal fade, which is one of the most fundamental red zone plays you could possibly call. But if you go back to Madden 05, you can call it goal fade.
Yeah.
Where did it go? You just scrapped it and you didn't add it back in. And again, they went through 2 engines. They put a new engine for the new gen, and then EA forced them to use the Frostbite engine, which is what DICE makes for first-person shooters. So I can't imagine how much of a hell that was, but, I would much rather go back and call my goal line fades in Madden 05, but I don't have the newest rosters.
They don't keep.
Sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's like online communities.
You can still play NFL 2K4 with the newest rosters, and it's like paradise of a football game.
Yeah,
but
because I mean, that's not that hard to do. I mean, it's just changing the names and then the
stats.
The stats.
I mean, people do it as like a little side job. They're just like, guys, I made a new roster for this week, and you just download it and go. It's really cool. Great community. Not a great game. I'm not excited for Madden. So,
I mean, it'll be interesting to see because. Do you think they'll continue that forever? I mean, because things are changing a lot. Like the way that people are watching sports is changing. And I think that, yes, the sporting world is very stilted in their exclusive contracts with even like, being on Fox or being on, like, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And like the way that the community is viewing content in general does not fit the way that sports companies or whatever you want to call them, franchises. That's what I'm looking for. Sports franchises are delivering it. It's like it's just not the same.
Yeah,
and it's like
think Madden specifically is going to change anytime soon.
Not Madden, but if the NFL then does exactly what you said, was provide their contract for being able to represent the teams and the names of the players to not just Madden but other developers.
Yeah, I don't see the NFL ever doing that, and I wish they would. But at the same time, I would have said the same
thing. They did it once.
MLB.
They did it once.
Yeah, and I think the real thing that caused them
what the show is it?
Yeah, so with the Major League Baseball, we had 2K Baseball,
but the show
had
came
their
in,
own,
right?
and then the show.
But the show was late
been around for a long time.
Yeah, but it was late in the game of baseball games.
I suppose PlayStation 2.
Yeah, but 2K's been forever.
But the MLB gave Sony their exclusive contract, so the show's been the only baseball game on the market, which has issues because the show's only on PlayStation. So if you're a guy who likes baseball games,
so none of the other ones really, none of the other ones are allowed.
Well, no, they don't get the MLB.
They don't get the rosters, and then
there's other baseball games like Superstar Baseball, but it's just not the same as seeing my team, my roster.
Yeah.
But the MLB just announced that you can't have exclusive to Sony anymore. So even though Sony is the only ones that can make the game, they have to make it for the Xbox and other consoles.
Okay.
So the next show most likely will be on the next generation console.
Well, it originally was, wasn't it? It was.
No, show's always been.
It's always been just Sony.
And the show's a great baseball game. It just sucks.
Well, didn't they start the whole box thing? Was that the show?
Box? I don't know who made that. I can't remember.
That was a big change in baseball because for the pitcher you could and it just totally changed the dynamics of how the game felt and played. I thought it was the show. Maybe it wasn't the show. It might have been 2K or something like that.
Introduced that, which is a great mechanic. And I mean, my favorite baseball game was the EA's MVP baseball series, and it was just that's still a lot of people say is the height of baseball games, and I hope we get back to that point. But I don't know, probably not.
Yeah,
but it was cool.
But
I don't think Madden. But again, maybe Madden and the NFL will change their mind. But what drove NFL to give Madden exclusive access was 2K4 was coming out. And they had that contract as well. And they thought it'd be a cool idea if they cut their game price in half and sold it at $39 to undercut Madden. And then Madden went, well, crap, let's cut our price down. And then NFL was like, so you're losing us money. Like, you guys just fought each other, and now our brand is discounted for both of your games. That's not going to happen anymore. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think, one of the biggest elements of why this is such a unique part of the game development scene is because it is. You're bound to a year development cycle, which is really fucking hard. I mean, like if you were to make, you can't make a game that's really good or, it's true, but that a lot of the times they have a lot of the infrastructure, which is nice because it's not going to change that much per year. So that's what helps you. But once you have to add new tech in or change your engine or to, upgrade or refactor, which would be what it just totally screws you.
Suffered from is like, sports games are an iterative process. So I understand for some people that are outside of that realm of like why it feels like you're playing the same game every year. And kind of, but there's small advancements throughout. And I mean, for a sports fan, I'm fine with getting those games every year and getting those new rosters and those slight new features. But yeah, Madden screwed up and has had 2 1-year development cycles to get a brand new engine working in your game.
Would you take a 2-year? I mean, you can't really do that. Would you allow a sports game to skip a season?
See, the thing is at this point, technically you can. They update the rosters every week.
No, I know, but they've never done it.
No, because it's
But
a
would you-
guaranteed cash flow.
Well, no, I understand
Yeah,
that,
so-
but I mean, would you fall off the would? One, you have to say, would the consumer allow it, and then 2, would the league allow it?
I know the league would not allow it.
Yeah.
I know that for sure.
I mean, those are the 2 things. It's
and
like
then as a publisher,
you'd probably
I
lose your
probably wouldn't allow it
contract.
either because
Yeah.
I know EA specifically probably uses Madden as their kind of safe pot of money. They're like, okay, guys, like we have this risky game coming out, but we know Madden's coming out, so like if this game doesn't perform like we want it to, at least Madden's there to do the normal like couple million
I mean,
sales.
it really
so
frustrates.
that's a scary amount to say. Let's just avoid the couple million.
I'm going to say, from somebody who doesn't really play sports game, people that play sports games frustrate the fuck out of me. The fact that they will accept these lower quality games and continue to play them with little to no change. It's like they're basically saying it's okay to screw me. And
that's my problem with the Madden franchise.
but it's the consumer that's saying
I
that.
know, and it's
the
frustrating.
consumer, and it's like these people that like these people, these Madden players, you know, and it's kind of what's happening in the and I'm not going to directly blame Madden and this type of consumer for this, but it's a lot of this rolling release crap and this early release, and like we don't need and how everything kind of went like, oh, you know, we don't really need to treat the buyer of these games respectfully at all. And like sporting games felt like they did it first. They kind of just stuck it to their consumers. Just said, hey, you love our game? Well, sorry.
Again, and that's what I'm saying of like when there's only one dev making the like. Again, if I want to play a soccer game, I play FIFA, so I'm screwed. But again, I don't.
But it's not. But exactly what you said, where you said that the old rosters are continually being upgraded. There's no real reason to need to buy the new game, and especially there has been years where I've talked to people that were big Madden players, and they said there's literally no difference between this game and the game that came before this. And if I knew that, and I was like, I would just continue to play the old game. Like
that's what I do.
But so many people buy it.
I know.
Mindlessly buy these games and don't understand that their purchases are votes and their votes matter.
I'm an
and like,
for I vote with my wallet, but I know that that's not how a lot of people use their wallet, and it sucks. I mean, like Madden Ultimate Team and FIFA Ultimate Team, which is their microtransaction fueled game mode, which has literally overtaken the old game modes that we used to have, like single player franchise mode. Now it's collecting these cards that you pay real money for to face other people online, and it's like there are people that's all they want to do is every year.
Was it NBA 2K? Was the one that
like
I would like
does that.
Did that at least get backlash? I mean, it's out now, right?
Yeah, it got backlash. I mean, 2K is
how did it sell?
Making probably the exact same like every other 2K.
Even with all the stupid casino shit and like
that's my problem with my Ultimate Team and microtransactions is either everybody who doesn't like them are the only people talking about it, or like the people who complain about it are just going and buying it anyways. And I'm like, then why complain? If you're gonna just go there and get the Ultimate Team every year and buy the new Madden every year, don't complain, because you're just you're showing them they don't have to do anything other than give you a new box. And
it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. And that's kind of, I mean, it's pretty bad right now. I mean, like,
Madden has gotten worse, and like when they
it's
made the
so
Frostbite change,
bad.
that was a terrifyingly awful game, Madden 12. And there's still things and bugs in the Madden series that are like, what are you ever going to fix this?
Yeah.
Or things like, why can't I call a slot?
Well, and there's also, I mean, just the fact that there are plays you can call that get you a TD, guaranteed TD. What was it? I mean, there was like fakes. There was like fakes and stuff that you could call that would get you a TD every single time.
Yeah, and it's because
it's like
it's honestly the game is poorly simulating football. If the fact that I can call one play and all of my linemen's AI do the exact same thing every single time, obviously there's going to be loopholes in your gameplay, and that's not. And the problem is Madden is a game that. Comparative to other ones, it's an animation-based football game, so a lot of the gameplay is driven by the animations that get ran. So like,
Oh,
if I
okay.
call my spin animation, I'm in that animation, and then the gameplay treats everything around that animation differently, rather than just spin the player model and see what other players do to it. So like,
Yeah. So you can
Madden
dupe
is just,
it. Yeah, you can
and that's
dupe
why
it
you can
to,
dupe
like-
Madden so hard. And then
Yeah.
you get into this like real money situation where I'm like, well, I have more money than you. I bought Barry Sanders in his prime, so now I'm gonna call the same counter fade or counter fake with my fullback, and you're never gonna catch me. I'm just gonna kick your ass, and then you're gonna quit. And it's just like, is this really what I want in my football game? God,
Yeah.
no.
and it inevitably becomes boring because it's
It
like
is. And
once
that's
you
why
once you can win every time, it's like it's as boring.
for me, I don't know.
Okay,
Some people
so
do just love winning.
I'm
every
calling it
single time.
out to all sports fans out there. Stop buying these stupid games and just upgrade your rosters for your old games and just be okay with it. You know, we need to allow for these companies to lose money in order for things to change. And it is not just the sporting world and sporting games that are being detrimented from this. It's the entire gaming community as a whole, because when you get suckered, every other game company sees that they can, like, oh, wow, they're making a lot of money doing that. Why don't we do it? And so it's dragging the entire gaming community down.
Yeah.
And
Again, if you're playing the new Maddens and you're someone who plays Madden every year, I'm not saying just go play 2K4.
Yeah.
Like NFL 2K4, and you're going to change your mind. Or play, it's not an NFL licensed game, but 2K made All Pro Football 2K8. Or too much of a name, but they couldn't call it NFL.
Yeah.
That game is better than any Madden game that's come out since Madden 06.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's sad.
I do
It's
like,
just a better
you know what I
game.
like
It's
about
just a
the
better
Madden
game.
games is the mini games. I think
Which
those,
those don't really exist anymore.
I know, but those were I loved those.
Yeah, and Madden 08 had this crazy
the, like,
cool
the
mode with
Tackle.
dummies.
Yeah.
Call dummies. That
Yeah.
was the coolest shit
Oh
ever.
my God,
I played that for hours.
It was like a little puzzle that you were going through, and like those were like I hated sports games, and I remember my friend bought the Madden game, and I sat there like for hours playing those games.
Yeah, it was
'Cause
awesome.
they were-
'cause
yeah.
You could literally learn how to be better at Madden by like learning these moves off of these massive dummy
Yeah,
dudes.
the dummy
it was so
dudes, yeah.
cool.
It
But
was
yeah,
really
that doesn't really exist
That
anymore.
doesn't exist, of course.
No.
You know,
It,
why?
they,
It was
they
good.
had such minute like in Madden 08, which was when they added, they even made it to where every single team had their normal NFL uniforms for games, but if you went to practice mode, you put practice jerseys on. So
Oh,
every
that's
team,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
not anymore. You just put the NFL. You're just
Why
fully
is that
geared
even-
up in.
Why is that
practice.
even a hard thing to do? It's like an
It's just
asset,
more assets, but again, yeah. And
but it's just an asset, and they already have the asset.
again, it's
Okay, so because
it's just
like
a matter of passion. I think there's not a lot of passion.
when an
because
asset
why?
is created, it's created in the highest fidelity that it can be created in, and then it's lowered to a lower, a fidelity for the console, or whatever the resolution is. So they still have the freaking asset. They still have it in its raw form.
Yeah, they
so
just
what's
update
the effing difference? All they have to do is change the resolution for it. It's probably at a ridiculously high
Yeah,
resolution.
again, I don't want to call out the Madden devs, and I know they're all it's their
It's
job.
just
And they're
frustrating.
doing, it's frustrating that again they don't have a game that's going to come out and be like, well, that game has practice jerseys, so I'm going to go play that one. That doesn't exist. If you don't have practice jerseys, you go, oh well, maybe they'll add it next year, and they never do, and they never will because it's such a small detail that
yeah, but those
I'm
are
not
the
going to
small
say the game's
details.
bad because there's no practice jerseys, but like those small details were what drove football and sports games back on the 6th generation of consoles, and that's why those were so much better than
Yeah.
now. Because
Well, I
there's just
remember
those small
back then it was
details
like
don't exist.
how the crowd reacted and all.
Yeah.
Like those were the things that like every year you'd see it and like people would care. They'd be like,
snow.
yeah,
There wasn't
snow,
really.
yeah.
There's not even really snow in Madden. You have to have it. You have to go to a certain location that allows you to have snow and turn on light rain and turn it to cold weather. You can't just say heavy snow. And it just there's just so many small details that these games just don't have anymore. That's just sad.
It's really sad. I mean, I'm not in. I don't play them, but like I do want them to be good.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
wanna
want
be next-
want
wanna
every single. I mean, just as the gaming community as a whole, I want every single game to have integrity, basically.
Yeah,
Want to be the best.
I know, and I just they don't. Maybe they do, but I mean, technically they are the best because they're the only ones. But I want them to push themselves to make the best games, and maybe they can't. And I understand they have 1 year, so of course there's bugs that have been around for 8 to 9 to 10 years.
But you know what? I mean, maybe it's the way that they they should make a great game and sacrifice. It's hard to say. So what I would do was make a great game and sacrifice your visuals, your graphics.
Yeah.
And like not try to be looked. But that's the selling point. Like that's the pictures.
Yeah,
they come out on the internet, and like that's the way they sell the game.
My favorite baseball games. There's this one called MLB Power Pros, which has the weirdest art style. You literally every character looks like Rayman. They have no legs, no arms, and they have big bobbleheads. Coolest game ever, though. That is such a fun baseball game, but it's weird.
Yeah,
but I love it.
Well, I mean, and
that's how there's some baseball games like that now.
You could say that across the board, though. I mean, like this idea of chasing the visual perfection rather than actual good gameplay has just been around since we've been able to have really nice looking graphics, and it's been the degradation of so many different genres. The one genre that's kind of untouched by this is kind of shooters. I mean, there has been the flumps, but
flump.
Yeah, flump is a word. It is a real word. There have been a lot of flumps, but it still is. I feel like they're able to hold the balance, and maybe it's because the shooting genre itself is very easily lends its hand to visual, like high visual capabilities, like because you're still just placing something and then have to shoot it, so it's kind of nice. But I know that RPGs have really suffered from this. I know that we talked last week about Final Fantasy and stuff, or the week before, but they've really suffered from this, where like they've created very visually beautiful games that are linear, where every game before that was fighting the linearity and like trying to be much of an open world game where there was this like mass exploration. But the second you do that, that takes a lot of computational power. So, hey, we can make it linear and we can now show off the graphical, capabilities of this game. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. And I'm sure that's the problem with a lot of sports games.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Madden is animation based, is because you can make some really great animations. And I'll give them credit. Like, there's some animations in that game that I'm like, wow, that's like a great juke, or wow, that's great that he swapped the ball. And like, there's things that look so cool, but then I'm like, but this doesn't feel as good as the old ones. And that's what matters to me the most, is am I feeling...
What did you see in the 2020 one that, like, in the showcase of that, like, that you were like, wow, that's cool?
Well, I mean...
It was just the end of it.
Nothing they showed looked like something I hadn't seen in Madden before. Like, they showed Pat Mahomes running to the goal line and, like, putting the ball around a dude to get over the pylon.
They've done that before.
I'm like, I've seen that before. Like, again, that was in 05. When I would dive in a corner of an end zone, I'd have my guy dive as a corner and put the ball over. Like, that's been there before. And I don't know if they're saying that that's a new feature or what, but, like, specifically what they showed off didn't look like anything.
Yeah.
It just looked like Madden 20.
Okay.
So, I don't...
Yeah.
And EA's pulling their same bullshit of it's smart delivery. So if you buy it on Xbox One, you get it on the Series X. But unlike all the other games, it's only for a month. So you have to buy the game at launch,
I was going to say that was
then redeem the new version. And if you don't within 30 days, it's not smart delivery. And if you buy it on the old console, you're screwed.
Interesting. So, I didn't know that.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know.
Because I know that everybody said that all games...
Yeah, everyone else is just like, well, it's just an all-the-time thing.
Yeah.
I think EA's the first one to think, what if we made this even worse for the consumer?
Well, it's kind of like when they opened their own store.
Yeah. Or invented online passes for every game that they bought.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I remember buying Battlefield 3 and being like, oh.
EA's accounts. I can never remember. The problem is you can never remember the password because you never sign into it and you get in it.
It was something stupid like, I fucking hate EA or fuck this thing. And you're just like, well, what was I feeling in this moment of passion?
That's so funny. I've actually made those exact passwords.
Yeah, because something like that.
You're like, fuck you fucking piece of shit. Yeah. It's but I mean, I think that's kind of EA's thing, it's they've gotten
their thing.
It has become. It's definitely become their thing. It's just penny pinching and trying to take your data and trying to it just sucks. Yeah. But I don't think that's ever going to stop. I don't think EA is ever going to go away. But we'll see. Maybe the consumer will get fed up. Hopefully someday.
Yeah, and I think that's a depressingly great way to end.
Are we ending?
I mean, we're about at 50 minutes probably now.
Okay.
So unless there's any last things you want to say.
Goobly gop.
Take that to heart, everybody.
Yep, that's the serious note. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We will continue to make awesome podcasts with subpar audio.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.